Hi, welcome to Lansing, Iowa. My name is Rebecca Kobos, and this is my studio and my husband, Joel Shoemaker. We're one of the outliers. We're one of those in a smaller town which isn't directly in Decorah, but we think it's a very special place to stop. So we're excited to show you what we've got. Welcome to my studio. This is the main room that I work in, and I love being in this space. Outside my window is Mount Ida. My mom's name was Ida, and it's just beautiful in the fall, and it's a place where I can sit at my loom and actually look out at the trees and nature. I love to weave. I'm kind of do a lot of fiber things. I do the fabric collages, which is what I'll be demonstrating today, and I do dyeing and painting on fabrics. In my room I have stations. This is the loom area. This allows me to weave up to 48 inches wide. Those of you who've been here in the past, my raffle is a scarf, a hand-woven scarf. And unfortunately we can't do that this year, but next year we'll do it for sure. I have a lot of good storage area for my fibers, and I have tubs of fabrics in different colors here, so that I have lots to choose from. This is my work area where I'm piecing the pieces together. Underneath I have tubs with different colors of the blue tub and the green tub, and I go to fabric stores and choose fat quarters, small amounts of fabrics that I really think are interesting and the textures are good and will make interesting images. Over here is my cutting table, and it's also a very sturdy table, so it's a wonderful place for me to set my sewing machine and to do the sewing and stitching that I do. I also have a desk area because you have to keep track of ordering supplies and keeping track of where artwork is going, and so it's nice to have this space for that. I actually have a big closet, even though it's a 1912 house. There's a closet that's full with all my extra art attachments and pieces and extra materials that I use. To get an idea of what I do or how I put this together, this is a piece that I did slides for the show on all the steps that I went through to put this together. So this is a piece that has the fabric placed down in it, and I place it down using Wonder Under so that it holds it steady when I get ready to stitch it. So I plan it out. I stitch it with free motion stitching, and on the back here you can see the image that shows up. Sometimes I think they're just as interesting as the one with the color. Then I go into it. I usually frame my pieces, so I might take out a frame or a mat that I have and try putting it on it to see how it will look framed. In this case I think I'd like a bigger mat than I have here. Sometimes I draw with free motion stitching first, so I'm actually drawing the image first, and on this bird you can see where I've drawn into the fabric, but this was all just freehand. I didn't draw anything first. Then I will go back into it with a fabric paint and start painting onto it, and then I'll use fabrics on it and do a little more stitching. So this one is maybe halfway through. Here's one that I did the stitching, the free motion stitching, and then painted it with the fabric paint, and I've gone into it now and added pieces of fabric using the Wonder Under to iron it on, and I've also done some hand stitching in it, so these little chicken scratch marks are embroidery that I've done. Oops, that's not supposed to be there. And put it together. In this one, again, I'm looking at framing and when I'm all finished. Here's a piece that I started that I've just started using the different colored fabrics and the Wonder Under and placed them, and they're ready for stitching. So the back of this is still plain. I like the stitching because it gives an outline to things, and it also, because I'm using a thin layer of batting, it gets a little bit of texture in it, so there's a little shape to it rather than just a straight painting. On this bird one, again, using the mats to try and decide how something looks. It's really interesting to me how much a picture changes when it's framed or matted. Do I do it over here? Do I do it over there? And that's a process I go through for the bigger ones. But I work with smaller card-shaped fabrics because they're quick sketches and they're not quite so precious if I end up not liking what I've done. So I've done some of these quick sketches where I've pieced together. It's about a 5x7, and I have my themes like my Iowa landscapes. I love cats and black cats and the shape of cats, so I do stitching there, or do those shapes. Here's one. I love flower pots and flowers and plants. These will all change some when I stitch them, but these are the basic form that I start with. On this one, I've done a portrait, and what I find interesting when I do this and fun is that when I stitch into it, I do a continuous line drawing, and when I do it, I don't allow myself to stop, even if I think, uh-oh, I didn't really want a line there, because that's part of what creates the personality. Here's a fairly simple design that I did with just the fabrics, 2 or 3 fabrics, but it's the stitching that gives this person personality. So the difference between the two is very interesting and fun for me. When I get done with a piece, like here's one that's with a cat that I've stitched. Here's the back of it. I then put it into a 5x7 card. It's a 3-fold card so that I can put this inside here, and I've got a mat on it. And then I take, like I did with the lady here, I'll take my sewing machine and stitch it into place. What I like about these is they're 5x7, and I can pop these into a frame. And so when I sell them, I tell people it's a card and it's a gift, because you can pick up a frame fairly inexpensively, pop it in, and you've got something to remember. You don't have to throw it away. So now that you've seen kind of the general steps that I go through, what I really like to show you is how I do the free motion stitching, the drawing on it. I just think it's magic that I can use my sewing machine and draw. And once I could do that, and in fact this sewing machine is the first one Joel and I bought when we were married, and it does free motion as good as my new machine that I have down in Florida. So what I'm doing is a continuous line drawing where I don't ever stop. I just keep going, whether it's exactly where I wanted it to be or not. I'm not a perfectionist. I like letting things sort of happen. So here's the finished piece with the stitching on it. Here's the drawing that you can see on the back side. And now this one is ready. I'll trim it down a little bit and put it into the cardstock so that it has a small frame around it, and it's ready to give away as a gift. This is always an adventure. This is a face that we'll see what her personality is. This is the continuous line drawing again, and we'll see where it takes us for who she is. Here she is, and she has a totally different look than when it was just the pieced fabrics. Here's the stitching on the back, so you can see why I call it drawing instead of stitching, because I really am drawing. I'm going to do a plain piece of fabric that's been adhered to a piece of craft batting, there's an iron-on surface on it so that adhesive, so this sticks to the surface after I heat set it with an iron, so I can draw on it without getting bumps and wiggles and things like that. I'm going to do a continuous line drawing, and I'm going to just do a simple still life. Ta-da! This will be a fun one to paint. Watercolor techniques on the fabric with fabric paint. I like the back better. Maybe I should paint on that and see what happens. Faces are always so interesting to me, like the small one, how the personality changed as I stitched it. This was a face that I had started by painting with fabric paint and looked at it and wasn't happy with it and set it aside for about a year and then brought it out again, and I've done some different things on this one. Instead of the stitching, I've used black Sharpie to draw in the design of the face. And I didn't like the coloration behind her hair, and so I used cut pieces of fabric and ironed those on to create a different pattern on her shirt. And over the years, I never thought I would ever do anything with this, but now I just think she's so interesting the way her personality shows. This is one of the finished cards. It's actually still the fabric. You can see the stitching on it, and that's the end product after I do all the other steps to get ready to this point. A lot of this is done with I just don't pre-draw the image. The image just comes out as I make it. So there's a lot of serendipity in what I do. This is one of my framed collages where I've pieced together the shapes of the river town, and then I stitch into it and frame it and make the wall piece. It's one of my more complicated pieces. After I realized that I was making one-of-a-kind pieces and then they were gone and I didn't have any record of them, I started scanning them into the computer and was amazed by how well the fabric still showed up as fabric, or the stitching still showed as stitching. So the images I had printed into card sets that I sell, and I usually do a set of 20 sets. And so I have, over the years, 30 or 40 different card sets, designs that I've done.
One of the things I like about Becky collaborating with me on the clay is that I like to throw pieces. So I throw a bowl or a platter like this and do some carving on it, but then I hand it to Becky and she can do surface decoration with underglazes, sometimes using similar motifs to what she does in her fiber.
I was surprised that I wondered about working on the pots, that would keep me from doing my work, but it's actually energizing to try doing some of my ideas on the pottery as well as onto the fabric. It's really been great that we can have these videos done and I can talk to you even though you can't talk back. But thanks for stopping and looking at my video, and if you would like to see more of my work, you can find me at my Etsy shop, which is Rebecca Kobos Fiber Art. But if you just type in Rebecca Kobos, K-O-B-O-S, it'll show. And there's a lot more on the site. So take a look around and enjoy. Thank you.